Needless to say, I think I hit the jackpot this month. That's right, another month is over, and it is time for the October 2025 video games pickup video. And well, it's going to be a long one. So sit back, relax, grab a drink or grab a snack. Let's talk video games. Because this month, this is probably the biggest video games pickup video I have ever done. And I got a lot of interesting, cool kind of things in the collection this month that I never thought I would have. And we're going to get into kind of some things that are right around the top. This month, I was given an offer by a friend of mine who was going through his attic and he found his childhood video games and offered them to me. Some of them for free, some of them for a very decent price, and some of them, well, surprised me because I didn't really know what I was getting. And that's what makes this very interesting. See, the first offer that was given to me was his Sega Game Gear. Now, I had a Game Gear, but my Game Gear did not work. And he warned me, first and foremost, that his did not work. But when I first saw this thing, I had to take it. The condition of it, minus a couple smudges on the screen, is pristine compared to the one I had. And with that, he gave me his childhood carrying case, which includes some things I've never actually seen face to face, like the Sega Game Gear battery pack, as well as an AC adapter and a magnifying glass. Now, I did just get this back today, and it is now in working condition. The Game Gear needed its capacitors replaced, and that's a fun story in itself because so did mine, I learned. And apparently Game Gears are notorious for having bad capacitors, so after attempting to replace them myself with the non-soldering skill that I have, I gave up, I got scared, I called up Digital Press in Clifton, New Jersey. They said they could repair it for me, and boy did they. So now I have two working Game Gears that, price-wise, was super affordable to have them replace the capacitors and have a piece of history now that's working condition. With the system itself, though, he did give me two games. I think just two games, right? Yep, and it is Jurassic Park and Star Trek, The Next Generation. It's going to be fun to be playing those. I really was never a Game Gear collector because my system was always in such poor condition. And now that I have two of them that are in decent condition, I might start collecting Game Gear games. So, yeah, let me know what you think I should pick up for the Game Gear. I do have quite a few games, but none of them I've really sat down and played. Like, I have some Sonic games for it. I have, I think, some sports games. But it is a system I would love to get into. Now, off screen, I have a little box here that I'm going to be putting the games in as I tell you about them, just for the sheer fact that there's no way I'm rebuilding this tower as we go through the games. He also, though, gave me his childhood N64. With that being said, you know there's going to be some games coming up for this system that I never had for my N64 collection that I probably should have had, because some of them are essential N64 games. I do have an N64 of myself. I have a golden one, but having another one for the collection is always good. Now, with the Game Gear, he also gave me a copy of NBA Jam that I just dropped. Now, NBA Jam is a fun arcadey game. You know, retro gamers, enthusiasts know NBA Jam. It's one of those fun midway, I think, and acclaim sports titles from the 90s. They were very much like a product of their time. NBA Jam, I think, was one of the first ones that took that arcadey sports style that would later also become popular, similarly with like Blitz and stuff like that, and MLB Slugfest. I have this, I think, for the Super Nintendo or for the Genesis. I'm not sure, but I know I have this in the collection already, so having a second copy never hurts. Now, that's going to be a theme for this video as well, because my friend who gave me these games, big sports fan collector. So a lot of the games that we're going to go through are sports games, which, you know, might not tickle someone's fancy. I'm not the biggest fan of sports games unless they're super arcadey, but some of these probably will enthrall childhood memories. Starting with this. For the Sega Genesis, actually, I know what you guys were thinking. Let's talk about this. See, one thing that he mentioned that I never thought I would own was a Sega CD. Nonetheless, a Model 1 Sega CD. And nonetheless, in working condition. Because not only is the Model 1 a very rare variant of the Sega CD, they are notorious, from what I was reading, for failure. And most people say to get the Model 2, which is just like a top-loading drive versus a mechanical disc drive. But when he told me this was in working condition, I had to jump on it. Now, whereas the Game Gear was free, I did have to pay for this, the N64, and the bundle of games he gave me, which, needless to say, I feel like I made out like a bandit. I tried to give him more money, but he said no, and I feel like I still owe him. Now, he also threw in his Model 1 Sega Genesis. I do have a Sega Genesis, only to realize that this one is special, because this is the high-definition graphics model of the Model 1 Sega Genesis. And I didn't really realize that at first until I was plugging in the ports in the back, and I realized this extension bay that I had never seen on my Genesis. So I took a quick glance over to my Model 1, and I realized it didn't have this, and it also didn't have the high-definition graphics logo to it. Apparently, this is the Model 1 to get, because it has like a superior sound chip. The games sound better, according to enthusiasts. And I just always love the Model 1. My on and off switch on mine also doesn't work the greatest, and the fact that the one I got like works perfectly fine. A couple things I had learned with this too is that the Model 1 I knew did not output stereo sound, but I didn't realize how much of a process, because I really never researched the Sega CD much. It was going to be to get stereo sound, because you have to use like an adapter cable that connects to the headphone jack of the Model 1. Now, when I said the Model 1 doesn't output stereo sound, it does, but only through the headphone jack and not through like the AV out. And then it's, I think, called like the mixer cable. And on modern TVs, so I have a Pound adapter for this, a Pound Technologies HDMI adapter that doesn't traditionally work how it used to work, that would have benefited this, where you would just plug in the yellow cable from your composite video and then the two audio outputs. Doesn't really work that way with this now. So what happens now is, what I had to do was hook up the Pound HDMI adapter, and then using an RC, which, you know, it's yellow and red cable. I'm going to stop rambling soon as I go through this list. I had to then tie that into my soundbar. I had to get a converter to a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack to now get the stereo CD quality sound out of the Sega CD. So, enough about the system. Let's move on to the games I picked up. I'm going to put this not in the box because I have been playing it. So, again, as I mentioned, the sports titles. First one was Sports Talk Football starring Joe Montana. These football games are going to be interesting because they are from a pre-EA exclusive NFL license. So, back in the day, anyone could really make a sports game using NFL teams as long as they got it licensed, because EA did not have the exclusivity. So, moving on. Dropping another game. This is going to make the blooper reel. So, we have a tennis game. ATP Tour Championship Tennis. I love arcade-style tennis games. I've never heard of this game. It's made by Sega Sports, and Sega used to always make banging sports games, in my opinion. So maybe I'll try this one out. Then, Tecmo Super Bowl. This is another arcade-style football game that I know people love. Tecmo Bowl. I wonder if this is just like a sequel to that. I've never heard of it before this moment, so let me know down below. I'm going to try to get through the sports games first, just so we can get to the fun ones. NFL 95, again, another licensed game by Sega Sports. Classic one here in Road Rash 2. I don't know if I've ever played Road Rash 2. I have the original Road Rash over there. I should pop this in. I always loved EA during this time because they decided they were bougie and had to get like custom-made cartridges versus like the regular Genesis cartridges. And one of the odd pet peeves that I have here too is with my Genesis collection, I love the cases and you know, with Super Nintendo, I've always had like loose carts, whatever. When I got my original Genesis, my friend sold me all of his games. Different friend than the one who gave me the Sega CD, but they all had the cases. So having loose carts for the Genesis is kind of iffy for me, but again, I can't complain to add some things to the collection. Now here is a fun one. Another sports game, but it's John Madden's football. It ain't Madden, it's John Madden. Moving on to a baseball game. We have Hardball 94. This is another one that different kind of cartridge. And what's interesting is it's made by Accolade, who, for those who are unaware and for those who are aware, Accolade is the company that made Bubsy. And there is a new Bubsy game coming out, so that's kind of cool to have this. Now for a non-sports game, I was shocked when I saw this in there, because I've wanted to play this for a while. I immediately, when he sent me the picture of what he had, looked at this cover, and I was like, I don't know, I know what that is, but I've never played it, and I want it. And then I was looking at the box as he gave it to me, looking for this cartridge, and it's Kid Chameleon. I know this game is one of those games from that 16-bit generation that you have to play at least once. I've heard so many people talk about this over the years, so now I get to finally play it. Back to the sports games, we have NHL PA Hockey 93, another one of these EA cartridges. You know, it's always cool too when Electronic Arts' logo used to be like the square, circle, triangle. Then, let's finish the Genesis games first. We have NBA Live 96, a late Genesis game, because 96, when this would have came out probably in 1995, the Saturn was already out. So I love seeing these games that came out after the successor had already hit the mark. We also have IMG International Tour Tennis. Another cool kind of game. Tennis game. And this one is another one I've never heard of. EA Sports La Russa Baseball. If you guys have played this, let me know how it is. Is it a simulation game or more of an arcadey game? Then we have EA Sports Andretti Racing. You know, it's kind of funny seeing all the kind of games EA used to put out sports-wise that they just don't anymore. I don't think EA has a racing game out there. I don't think they have a tennis game out there. I don't think they have a baseball game out there, because Sony has MLB The Show, and that's kind of the only baseball game in town these days. And I don't even think they still make NBA Live, which that series was so popular when I was a kid. Alright, we got some more Genesis games over here. Are these going to be sports titles? Yes. So, another classic though. Super Monaco GP, another racing game. World Series Baseball, 95, Sega sports game. I'll probably like this one. And then Primetime NFL Football by Sega Sports. It's cool to see that like Sega was also like head-to-head there, creating all these different sports games that you didn't really see at the time from major like console manufacturers. Like I don't think Atari at the time was making their own thing. I don't think Nintendo was. Sony started to, but like in this era, the 16-bit era, Sega was probably the only first party, if I'm not mistaken, making their own licensed sports games. Correct me if I'm wrong. Now this one I was super excited to have in the collection because I did not own it, and that is Altered Beast. This is a classic game that I probably should have owned. You know, it's probably sacrilegious that I didn't, but to have this finally and play this, it's gonna be cool. Now, not the last Genesis game in here. We have some more down here. I should have stacked these better. We have Sports Talks Baseball. I don't know if this is licensed or not. I don't see like an MLB logo on here. But then also, he gave me something that I wanted that isn't necessarily valuable, but just kind of cool to have. A not-for-resale Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, to me, I think what I've learned is this isn't all that rare, because this, I think, was the version that was bundled with the Genesis when you bought it, the not-for-resale one. I think I have Sonic 1, but it's not this version, so having the not-for-resale one is kind of cool. And I think this is the last Genesis game I got this month. No, there's 2 up here. What am I talking about? I'm getting ahead of myself. But these are also 2 sports games. So you have... Is this different? No, so he gave me 2 of the same. This is MLB Sports Talk Baseball with a cartridge in it. So I wonder why he had 2 copies of it. I might have to question him on that. But then I also got Joe Montana 2 Sports Talk Football. Do I have this one too? No, this one's different than the one I showed. It's a little different. Huh. So many sports games from back in the day, and they all have that 2D style when, you know, nowadays you just picture sports games being 3D. So it's always fun to go back to playing these. Now I think, if I'm not lying this time, this is actually my final Genesis game. Again, if I'm wrong, I apologize. I picked this up because this has history with me to an extent. And I picked up Viewpoint on the Sega Genesis. Now, why this has history for me to an extent is Viewpoint on the PlayStation 1 was my first PlayStation 1 game. And it's a game that eats at my soul to this day. And I still have it because I've never been able to get past like the second level of that game. And I'm hoping that maybe I can do it on Genesis. I know it's different. The graphical style is a lot less 3D because for the PlayStation, they made it like this whole big thing. They redid the graphics. They redid, I heard, the difficulty. I don't know if the PlayStation one is supposed to be easier than the Genesis one. I guess I'll find out. Hopefully I can beat one version of this game. It's like an isometric spaceship shooter, and I should be decent at those because I usually am. But this game's always had my number. Maybe I can change that. Now going into the other things he gave me. A game for the Super Nintendo that, again, should have been in the collection. It's a classic. It's F-Zero. Again, with the sports games, we have Madden 95. Now, some of these are going to be cool because he gave me Mortal Kombat. Notoriously, the SNES version of Mortal Kombat has the blood censored where the Genesis version did not. And then another variation of a game that was on the Sega Genesis, Tecmo Super Bowl. I'm interested to play this because a lot of times you could, with the Genesis and the Super Nintendo, it's same name, different game, and I'm all for seeing the differences with that. And I think the final game on the Super Nintendo is Super Mario World. I own this already, but it's going to be cool to have 2 different copies of it. Also, let's go into the N64 games I picked up. Now, all of these games, minus Viewpoint, came with what I bought from him. For, like I said, a very decent price. N64 games, the Super Nintendo games, the N64, the Sega CD, and the Genesis. I came home, I opened the box, I didn't really look at it when we were exchanging stuff. I looked at the Sega CD, I didn't really see what else was in there, and then I got home and I'm going through everything, and I'm just like, wow. So, N64. We'll start with a sports game. Madden 99. As you can see, this is when it starts becoming Madden, like even with that Genesis or Super Nintendo game, and it's not John Madden anymore. This was one of the games, so let's go into it real quick. When he showed me his collection of N64 games, there was a few that I wanted. There were a few that I had in the collection, and he was like, well, if you want those 4, you might as well just take them all, because there's not a lot of N64 games, as you could see. And this was one of the ones that I was like, oh, I need this. And it's Diddy Kong Racing. Another classic racing game for the N64. I mean, now you have Knockout Kings 2000. A boxing game that I believe has Muhammad Ali on the cover of it. I could be wrong. It looks like Muhammad Ali, but he's wearing an EA Sports thing, and I don't think he was in that type of shape in 2000. If you guys know if this is Muhammad Ali or not, let me know who's on the cover. I'm pretty sure, though, EA also made the Fight Night games, which were boxing games in themselves. So I've never heard of Knockout Kings. Is this like a Legends-based boxing game? Let me know. Also, Magical Tetris Challenge. I thought when I first read this, So two things are interesting about this, actually. First one, it's sold by Capcom. And I did not know Capcom made a Tetris game. But I also just thought this was regular Tetris. So I have no clue what Magical Tetris Challenge is. I'm going to have to plug this in. Now, these next two games are games I should have had in the collection. Games that are like essential for the N64. The first one is Super Mario 64. As much as I'm a game collector and I would have thought I had this, I never ever picked up Super Mario 64. I've never beaten Super Mario 64. I know that's rough to say, it's rough to admit, but there is a time to redeem myself. The other game I've beaten. I've played a few times, but I've never played it on the actual N64, and that is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. That's going to change soon. I was going to replay this on the Switch 2 online, but I might just play it on the N64 instead. Another game from my childhood that I think I now own this on every console it came out on, because I have it on, or I've played it on every console it comes out on. Because I played it on the PlayStation 1, I own it for the Dreamcast, now I own it for the N64, and I played this version of it as a kid at my cousin's house, and that's Toy Story 2. One of the classic, more better 3D, like, movie-based games of the time. I really enjoy this game every time I play this, and I will say this now, in 2025, as this game came out 26 years ago when I was a mere child, I will still put this in. Also, a game that should have been in the collection, it's a classic for its time, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. I'm not even sure if I've actually ever played this game. I've seen footage of it, and it seems cool. I was big into Star Wars when I was a kid. Not so much now, but I will definitely put this back in and play it. This one I've seen quite a lot about, too. And I think people like this. I think people think it's adorable of a game, and that's Beetle Adventure Racing. Now, in the late 2000s, or late 90s, early 2000s, Volkswagen Beetles were like all the rage. I remember seeing them everywhere. I remember people talking about them all the time, and now, like, no one ever brings them up. So this is like a flashback. Now, these last two are sports games to an extent. This game was one of my first wrestling PlayStation 1 games, and I know everyone, when you think about the N64, you think of WCW Revenge, you think of WWF No Mercy, you think of WWF WrestleMania 2000, but this is the one that started it all for me, and that is WWF Warzone. Now, the N64 version is a little different than the PlayStation 1 version for the sheer fact that the N64 version of Warzone has a Royal Rumble mode that the PS1 version doesn't have, and I used to be jealous of my friends for that, because the Rumble is one of my favorite wrestling events of the year. This one, ending it off with a sports game, I had to have this for the sheer fact that I think I have every, like, concurrent versions of this, right? And this is NFL Blitz 2001. I don't know if I've ever played Blitz 2001. I've played NFL Blitz. I played Blitz 2000. But 2001, I don't think I knew was a thing. So this will be cool to have in the collection. Now let's go in to the other games. What we're going to go through here is a little bit of a mix of retro, a lot of Sega CD games I picked up because I felt like I had to jumpstart the collection, but we do have some modern stuff going in. And we're going to start off with a PlayStation 5 game, and that is Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered. Now, I was waiting for this to get like a physical release for the PlayStation 5. I loved Skyrim, even though I hated Skyrim when I first played it, and when I actually sat about a year and a half after I first played it, vengeful that I needed to beat that game. I sunk so many hours into it, and it was one of my first PlayStation 3 Platinum trophies. I think it was like one of my first three, because the first one was Jak and Daxter, and there was probably some wrestling games, but Skyrim was 2013, right around that time, and no, Skyrim was 2014. But so anyway, I always wanted to play Oblivion, but I never bought it on the PlayStation 3 when it came out. So to play this remastered, reimagined version of it is going to be kind of cool. And also this month, I felt like I had to buy some more PSVR 2 games. I was looking for some cool ones, And I kind of dread it at the same time because I love playing in virtual reality, but after like an hour, I start getting dizzy and like sweaty and motion sickness. And it's odd because I don't get motion sickness in any other scenario except for playing VR. And I was reading online that like if you try to have if you have a setting in your headset for vignetting, it kind of helps you stay focused and reduce like the motion sickness. But the game I picked up was called Behemoth, Skydance's Behemoth. People talked about this online. They said this was a game to get. So it looked cool. It looked like an adventure game. And I'm all for giving it a shot. The next game, well, I picked it up just because of the title. I love picking up obscure games. Not necessarily obscure, but obscure sounding games. And this one, I want to know if any of you guys have played this. And it's Squirrel with a Gun. Apparently, this is exactly how it sounds. Looking at the back, you're pretty much just a squirrel with a gun going around doing reckless stuff. And I'm all for this. A game like this has caught my eye ever since on the Switch 1 I bought a game called Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. So things like this, absolutely. Now, 2 games actually got delivered today. They came out today. And we're going to talk about it. 2 JRPGs. First for the Switch 2, I got Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD Remake. And funnily enough, I have Dragon Quest 3 HD Remake as well that I got last year. Haven't started it. But I loved playing Dawn of an Elusive Age or something like that? Dragon Quest 11. I know I'm getting the name wrong, the subtitle of it, and people are going to probably lambast me for it, but you know what? I'm just going to say that game was fantastic. As my start into Dragon Quest, loved it. I love 2D JRPGs, so I know I'm going to love the HD 2D remakes of 1, 2, and 3. And yeah, I'm excited to play this. I do hate that it came on a game key card. I am someone who likes the physical collection, but it is what it is. Another game for the Switch 2 collection. And the other one is a remaster of a game that I first played 10 years ago, and that is Tales of Xillia Remastered. Now, I didn't even know this was a thing. Let me tell you, as a Tales of fan, I felt like I let myself down because I was just Googling stuff one day, and on Amazon, the For You suggestion showed up as Xillia Remastered, and I was like, when was this ever announced? Because how far out of the loop have I been that I don't remember this being announced? Now, I played Xillia originally on the PlayStation 3. In 2015, I think it was like a couple years after it originally came out, and I got into it originally because Xillia 2 had artwork on the cover that made me want to play that game. But I was like, I can't play that game until I play the first game. And at the end of the day, I liked the first game a lot better because the story was more there. 2, for some reason, felt more side questy, where 1 was like a full-fledged out game. And this was a game that after work, I used to come home and look forward to continuing the story. So I had to pick this up. And it wasn't like a full-fledged price game either. Namco Bandai, or Bandai Namco, has been doing these remasters for like $40 and definitely worth the pickup. Now, let's go into some Sega CD games, because if you're like me and never owned a Sega CD and never really knew anything about the library of it, aside from 2 games that we're going to get into, I had to do research of good Sega CD games because I was one of those people that was basically taught that Sega CD only had FMV games and the library wasn't that great. And then when I started looking at games, I was like, this looks cool. This looks cool. And we're going to start off with one that looks cooler than I thought it was going to be. And I didn't know what it was until I, did some research, because this is on 4 different systems and I have never heard of it on any of them. And that is Mickey Mania. The Timeless Adventures of Mickey Mouse. Now this game looks so cool because apparently you go through levels as like different eras of Mickey Mouse, and the art style on this, for real, just looks like super high quality. And it's also one of those games that before the PlayStation was made, it's made by Sony. So I had to get this for the collection. It wasn't super expensive, so of course. This game, again, I was wandering eBay in the middle of the night, never heard of this, but it's like a 2D platformer. It has that old school style to it, and that's Pugsy. Again, didn't know much about it. I kind of like the back of it. It doesn't look like it's really living up to like the capabilities of the Sega CD. And the Sega CD really didn't have a lot of super big capabilities. Like, it enhanced games quite a bit if they like took advantage of it. It was mostly there for like higher quality CD capacity, CD quality music, things like that. And I say this as I've yet to play anything but Sonic CD. And that's just kind of a spoiler for a game that's in this list. So if you've played Pugsy, let me know. Another game that I said I had to get if I bought a Sega CD, and it's one of the only ones that came in this like weird cardboard cartridge, is Batman Returns. Now, if you know me, you know I love Batman, and Michael Keaton's Batman is my favorite Batman. Now, this is really just an expansive version of the Genesis game that has like driving sequences that aren't in the Genesis game. But again, the box art's cool. People apparently love this game online. It doesn't add much to the Genesis game. I mean, it kind of does from like adding all the driving sections. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, people always said that aside from the driving sections, again, it was nothing special, but the driving sections is what makes people want to get the Sega CD version of this game. Take a little break of Sega CD, real quick. This month was big on the Nintendo Switch 2 because Pokemon Legends Z to A came out. Had to get it. I've been getting back into Pokemon since I've been playing on my Switch a lot more. You guys have seen the pickups, if you have, throughout the last couple years. Z to A looks cool. You're going back to the region that X and Y was in, and I loved X and Y on 3DS, so I am super excited to eventually play this. Legends Arceus, I wasn't that big of a fan of. I beat it, I played it, but hopefully Z to A fixes all of that. Now this game, I actually forgot I got, because I bought this on a deal, and that is Zelda Skyward Sword HD. I was not going to pay full price for this game. I have this on the Wii. My Wii mode is the Skyward Sword limited edition one. But I did have an inkling that I didn't want to play this again. Play it on the Switch. Well, it's going to be on the Switch too for me, but this was like $40. I was like, all right, this will be the time to finally get it. Now, it can't be a retro game month without picking up a Saturn game for me, right? So I picked up a game that is a collection of Parodius games. Now, this is an import from Japan. Parodius is like a parody spaceship shooter series that people talk wonders about just because of its humor, how it doesn't take itself seriously at all. And it's made by Konami. I've never played Parodius before. I felt like I would give it a chance if I could get a game that wasn't super expensive, and here we are. I also had to hit up the TurboGrafx. And funnily enough, one of these games I can't even play because, needless to say, I was having a rough night one night and bought this without even knowing that it wasn't for a system that I own. Now, the first game that I can play is Impossible. Now, I know nothing about this series. Apparently, this is like the third game in the Mole series. And I don't know. It just looked cool when I saw it browsing through TurboGrafx games. And I was like, I could get this. I could play this. Now, the game that I can't play is The Addams Family. What made me think that I could play this was that it just has the TurboGrafx logo on it. And then the next morning I realized, wait a minute, I don't think there was ever a TurboGrafx 16 version of this game. And I was right. This is a TurboGrafx CD game. I don't own a TurboGrafx CD, and I don't know if this is a sign for me to buy a TurboGrafx CD, even though the prices of them are exuberant. You know, if I came across one for a good deal in the wild, I would probably get one. And I want to play this game. I just got to find a different way, too. Now, going back to the Sega CD, that's going to be a big topic going forward. I picked up The Adventures of Batman and Robin. Now, this is really just a driving game. Using the Batmobile, using What's it called? The Batwing? Yeah, the Batwing plane thing. And some, I guess, FMV action sequences that are based off like the cartoon that was on TV. I was just shocked because just like Mickey Mania, the art on this is like second to none to me. Like, I'm all for this. I'm just like shocked that they don't make artwork like as comic booky, as cool like that anymore. Another game for the Sega CD is Soulstar. Now, people compare this game a lot to Star Fox 64 because of how it has like it's a spaceship shooter, but it has like a weird, like, I guess, first person scrolly type of background. I don't think anything about it is 3D, but when I saw videos of this game, I was like, you know what? Let's buy it. Let's treat ourselves. Another game that people have said is a must-buy for the Sega CD is Android Assault. This is another spaceship shooter. This is like a side-scrolling spaceship shooter, well, Android shooter, if you really want to call it that. It's made by a company called Big Fun Games. I've never even heard of them. They probably don't exist anymore. But this was apparently something for the Sega CD that is worth being in the collection. I gave this one away a little bit earlier, but if I was going to get a Sega CD, I had to get Sonic CD. I've played this game on so many different consoles. Originally on the PlayStation 3 when it was first released there back in like 2011, I think is when it was uploaded. I bought the Model 2 Genesis Mini because Sonic CD was on there, and they put Sega CD games in some capacity on that system, which everyone was shocked about. Another game that I didn't even know came out for the Sega CD, but it's a classic, Samurai Showdown. Funny thing about this, like, is it's made by JVC. And I did some research on JVC that night because, you know, you start digging through the rabbit hole. JVC was like the Japanese Victor company. And Victor was the American company of like Victor Electronics, who were the founder of the Victrola, the record player, which I have a Victrola record player in the closet. So it's just weird to me, a little bit of a rabbit hole, that somehow Samurai Showdown is related to a record player. I'm thinking too much into it, but it's kind of cool in a weird 3 degrees of separation, right? Now, I, as a JRPG fan, I needed to find some JRPGs for the Sega CD, and there's not many, but one I came across was a Working Designs game called Vedi. This looks like your traditional JRPG. I had to pick it up. Working Designs always does like these holographic kind of cases, so I knew I was going to love it. Haven't played it yet, but the art style has me intrigued. Hearing people review this game online has me intrigued. I think I'm going to like it. Now, this game, I somehow got new in box. I didn't know these were still out there like this. And it's Echo, Tides of Time. So, Echo the Dolphin, Tides of Time. I played a little bit of Echo the Dolphin on the Sega Genesis. Wasn't super big of a fan just because of it, but I figured I'd give it another shot on the Sega CD. Speaking of a cool game that is on the Sega CD, I picked up The Amazing Spider-Man versus The Kingpin. Superhero games were my jam back in like my childhood, and I never knew about this game because I didn't have a Sega CD. I was a PlayStation kid growing up. So to just kind of start collecting games like these, even though this one sounds like it's out of the socket for it, it's going to be cool. You know, there's just some charm about like 16-bit games, that 2D style. But one game I knew had to be in the collection, and I did not know Limited Run at some point was making Sega CD games. So this is a remake, a re-release, and that, there's Night Trap. Now, Night Trap is one of those games, along with Mortal Kombat, that influenced the creation of the ESRB that we all know and love today. A weird full motion video game, and I said this is one of the things I knew the Sega CD for, and I said if I got a Sega CD, I had to get Night Trap. Am I going to like the game? I don't know. I've never played it, but I will. Now, the last couple games, well, last 6-7 games that we'll talk about, first off, is Bram Stoker's Dracula. This looks like some weird digitized fighting game with full motion video. I thought it was going to be like Castlevania when I first bought it. I knew I was going to be wrong about that. But it's kind of cool to have. And another classic game that confused me when I first got it because it's not in its original case. It's in a case for Link's The Challenge of Golf, which isn't the game. Anyway, the game is Dragon's Lair. This is like a classic PC game. And it threw me off because, like I said, it's in like a Link's case. And then I was like, hopefully they sent me the right game. And luckily enough, Dragon's Lair is in here. I don't know why that's the way it is. Whoever owned this before me, why they separated the case like that. Maybe the case broke and I don't know. Whatever. I'm not going to ask questions. And then this one, didn't know anything about, but it felt very 90s when I looked at it. And apparently it's just like a music video maker, and it's a Power Factory. So, you know, I'm probably not going to play much of this, if we're going to be honest. But it'll be cool to pop in. Now, before we get into... Well, let's get into the ones that were given to me with the system. This is Tomcat Alley. This is like an FMV, but also kind of, I guess, like a Top Gun, almost like airplane FMV shooter. And then I got the Sega CD version of NBA Jam given to me. So it's kind of cool to have NBA Jam on the Super Nintendo and the Sega CD. I feel like the Sega CD version is going to be better, correct me if I'm wrong. And then, again, with the friend who loves his sports games in his childhood, Joe Montana's NFL Football. Now, this actually does look a little different and a little bit more 3D in a way than the Genesis version did when I looked at it. So maybe it's a better game. These are actually kind of cool. And don't worry, I have a special game that I'm saving for last that is not a Sega CD game. So, apparently at some point, Sega CD or Sega was releasing games in like these book kind of looking things. So this is Soul Feast. It looks like it's a spaceship shooter. I've never heard of it. I didn't do any research on it. And then there was a rock painting CDG sampler. I guess it shows you a bunch of music videos? Like, maybe with paintings and graphics? That's interesting. And like, I say this because it's weird because you see like Jimi Hendrix smash hits. Fleetwood Mac on here, Informational Society. I don't know what this is. I'm going to have to check it out one day. But this one was kind of cool. Because this is a little compilation. And this is the Sega Classics Arcade Collection. But also, it includes Sherlock Holmes. Now, I like it because this one does have two different discs. The Sega Classics has Streets of Rage, Revenge of Shinobi, Columns, and Golden Axe. And then Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, which I know nothing about. So, needless to say, I picked up quite a substantial Sega CD collection that I just decided to buy stuff for to have it. I didn't need any more games, but this was an offer I could not refuse. Another offer I could not refuse was one I made myself. Now, I always wanted to own some physical version of this game, whether it be on the PlayStation 1 or its re-release on the PlayStation Portable. And the day I went and dropped off those Game Gears to get fixed at Digital Press, I was like, let me do a little browsing. Let's see what they have. Because Digital Press always has something surprising for me. And in the PSP section, they had the remake of Shin Megami Tensei Persona. You know me. You know I love my SMT games. You know I love Persona. And I either wanted this or the Revelations Persona game for the PlayStation 1, which I might still get along the way. But what's cool with this is just like my Persona 2 for the PSP, this does actually come with the soundtrack and the game. Now, I never thought I would get into PSP collecting, but around the same time last year is when I got Persona 2 Innocent Sin, and it's just one of those things that I circled around the store like 3 times, and I was like, do I do it? Do I really want to buy this game? I don't collect for the PlayStation Portable. I don't. Like, I told myself that. I said Innocent Sin was going to be it. And then I saw this. And then I go to the guy. And he's like, what's wrong? Like, because I just had a puzzled look on my face. And I was like, you know what? Let me get Persona for the PlayStation Portable. And he was like, oh, good choice. He's like, usually when this comes in, we don't ever have it for that long. So, with that being said, I had to get it. I've never seen this in public before. Even behind a case, like, I've never, even when I was buying PSP games when this came out, maybe I didn't know Persona all that well back then. I might have walked past it at some point, but I had to get it. Now, am I going to play this on my PSP? Maybe, but I might just upscale it and play it on my PC. Either way, I know there's some differences between the original version to this one that they changed during localization. I know people say the PlayStation 1 version has a better soundtrack, but it's Persona, and I had to have it, guys. So, thank you, if you're still here, for watching this massive video games pickup video for October 2025. This felt like Black Friday, honestly. I didn't know what I was going to get. I didn't expect to get much. I expected to get those PlayStation 1 games, or no, the PlayStation 5 games, the Switch 1 and 2 games that I got, even though I think I only got Switch 2 games. I don't know why I said Switch 1. And I thought it was going to be small. You know, I thought it was going to be like 4 or 5 games this month. I was, originally at the beginning of the month, I was just going to hold off what I bought this month to just combine with my usual Black Friday video. But I don't even know if I'm doing a Black Friday video this year after all this. So, you know, if you've played these games, let me know down in the comment section below what you thought about them. Thank you for watching. If you're still here, if you've stayed for all 47 minutes of this. Until next time, guys, game on. I will catch you later. See ya. Bye.